Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're working on the Nissan. We're trying to solve this problem here that we've got where the clear coat on the front bumper is all peeling away. Now it is only the front bumper, the back bumper for some reason is fine. What we're going to do is we're going to knock this back with some essentially sandpaper, very high grade sandpaper, and we're going to re-clear coat this again. So the first thing we need to do is take off this grille. There are 4 clips, one there, and 2 in the middle either side of the bonnet latch, and they look like this. So you need to lift that centerpiece up to get it out. You can either use a screwdriver, or I've got a trim tool kit which comes with this handy dandy thing. So one of these kits, these are like 10 or 15 pounds on Amazon or eBay. Once you've got these 4 clips out, there is clip here where this hole is, and you need to feel with your finger. There's a little tab to release there, one on the other side, and then you can lift it up a little bit, and then along the bottom there are 4 clips. Let me see if I can show you. So on the bottom of the clip there's a little tab which you press to get it through the hole that it goes into. There's a hole here, and there's 4, there's 2 either side, so you just need to feel in those, and you pull the grille forward like that and it releases. So the next job, there is a clip there, I've already taken that one out, they just pull out. It's secured at the sides, so where it's here, where there's the line in the bodywork, there's a bolt in here which you have to get from inside the liner. You don't have to take the whole liner out, you can release some screws underneath, just set a stone at my tyre, and get to the bolt. But there's some more underneath that we have to take off, so we'll do that next. Okay, so I'm on the driver's side now. I've turned the wheel to make it a bit easier to get to things, and there is a clip where my finger's pointing to, which is like the ones on the top of the grille, so I've taken that one out. And then underneath the car there is, I don't know if you can see, there's 3 screws, one there, one there, one there. These are unusually Phillips. They tend to be Torx under cars, but obviously not with Nissan. So just these 3 on this side, which makes this spoilery thing flap about, but it enables you to get the liner undone. As I said, you don't have to take the whole liner out, you just get this loose, and then you can pull it away, and where my finger's pointing there is a nut. So as a bolt goes through here and into the wing, so it feels like a 10 or a 13, so I'm just going to get the socket set out, and then we'll take that nut out, and then we do the same on the other side. So I've got it's actually a screw, I've got the hex-headed screw, it's obviously got Phillips in it as well, which you could use to take it out. And then what you can do is, if you pull on the plastic part of the bumper, it will just pull out. There's like a white plastic thing, it just kind of pushes and clips in when you would put it back on, and you can kind of see there are 3 little tabs that kind of correspond to these 3 holes, so the tab will end up popping up through that hole when you would push it back. So that's this side off. I'll go take the other side off, and then we have to have a look underneath again. Okay, right, you now have a choice, believe it or not. This black plastic under tray bit is fastened to the bumper, so you can either, this depends really on the state of these bolts. This is the subframe at the front, and there are a number of bolts, some of which are hidden by the way, because here if you twizzle this piece, there's one there, that's why the hole's there, to be able to access it. But this is loose because we've undone the screws, so you can slide that round and get to that bolt. You can feel behind, there isn't any there, so one there, all the way across, and then one at the other side. Or you can undo hundreds of clips. So there's loads of these clips. I mean, there must be 20, maybe a bit less, but a lot more than there are bolts. Now I don't know about you, but I'd rather take a bolt out that looks pretty clean than try not to break 20 clips. So I'm going to take these bolts out, and then essentially the bumper's free and we should be able to pull it off. Well, that went south quick. Here's the first bolt, look, snapped clean off. That's the one that's hidden in the little hole, so I've got no choice now. I've tried some of these others and they undo a couple of threads and then get really tight again. I'm really worried about snapping all of them into the subframe. So clips it is, so I'm going to have to go along and undo these millions of clips and hope I don't break them. Right, so as it turned out, you don't need to take as many clips off as I anticipated, 4 each side. The other clips are actually holding this like lip spoiler on the bottom, so you don't need to remove those. And I reckon now if I grab this, the bumper's now loose. Now we need to disconnect the fog lights. If you've got fog lights, just disconnect the cable on each side and then the bumper's free and we can start playing with the paint. Right, we're in the workshop now. These are the fog lights and it looks like there's just a little clip either side is pushing clips and we can take the whole unit out. Now that might make it a lot easier to mask off, so I'm going to take these out and then see what happens, see if it's worth doing or not. Well, that turned out to be the right decision. 3 clips, not 2, and out she comes, lens and everything. So that means I can give the lens a nice clean before I put it back, and it makes masking up much easier. I'll just better put some masking tape over the hole from the back and I can spray to my heart's content, not worried about hitting the fog light. So yeah, I think I'll take the next one out. I'm going to leave this trim piece on at the bottom. It looks like it's just held on with 3 Phillipses, but I've been here before and it's got some pretty strong adhesive, probably double-sided tape on the top. It's really not worth the trouble for me to take this off. You know, this is not an expensive car, it's just our run around and I just want to prettify it a bit. It's not really worth the effort to take this off. Last thing to take out is this thing. This is, let me turn this up, this is in the bumper here. This gives you access to where you screw in the towing hook. If you break down you can push a, there we go, if you break down you can push a hook in there and screw it into the chassis, and that hangs on this piece of plastic here, so it goes there. It's easy enough to get out. It's only 2 little teethy things either side. These 2 here, just press these in, out it comes, and that'll get sanded and sprayed as well. Right, so we're outside now. I've got it stood on a couple of sawhorses. I'll give it a really good wash. I'm going to go over it again and then we need to start sanding. Now the bits where, let me show you a piece, so a bit like here where we lost quite a bit of clear coat, we need to start with something like this, which is 600. Do it wet and then we'll go up the grades to get it finer and finer, because obviously we need to get rid of the scratches that we've made from sanding it. Right, so I started with the 600, it was immediately too much, and even with the 1000 grit, as soon as you touch it you're through the paint. But this has been done with 1000 and I can still feel the edges of the clear coat where it's, you know, this should be nice and smooth, but there's so little clear coat on this, and then it didn't look like there's much paint either. It's like they've just flashed it over, so this has turned into a full paint job, I'm afraid, which it's not really a problem. I mean, it's more money and more effort for me. You can see it's gone through here, and I'm hardly touching this. I'm not putting any pressure on at all, using 1000 grit, and it's just taking the paint clean off. So I'm going to get this flat. I'll then mask it up, prime it, I'll get a can of the colour, we'll colour spray it, and then we'll top coat it. So it's turned into a longer project, but we should end up with a much better finish in the end, because the whole thing will have been repainted. But that's the way these jobs sometimes go. You just got to not be fazed by it, just get on with it and move on. So I'm going to keep flattening this off, and I'll come back when it's all done. We've now moved into the workshop, and the whole front bumper has had a good old sand, I suppose, with 800 grit paper. This feels really smooth now, and all of the bits where the clear coat had made like a little circle, you need to sort of fingertip this and feel, and make sure that you can't feel any of those. And I've scuffed up all of the paint that wasn't bubbled, because I'm now going to prime it. I've masked off the silver bit at the bottom. It was held on with screws at the bottom, but it had strong double-sided tape on the top, and it's really, I don't need to paint any of this area, so it's a bit of a waste of time taking it off. So I've masked all of the entrance of the grille and the bottom piece, and put a bit over the number plate hole, because it's got like old bits of tape on there, which I'm going to take off later. You're never going to see that because the new number plate's going on it. And same on this side, it's all sanded off, ready for primer. I'm going to give it a wipe over with some panel wipe. Let me show you my box of tricks. Here we go, litre of panel wipe. This stuff, you have to be careful with this stuff, it can cause genetic damage. Well, that probably won't change me much, but you need to be careful with this stuff, and don't need to use too much. This is like a degrease. This is to get rid of your fingerprints and things like that, so they don't affect the paint that you put on next. So I'm going to give it a wipe over with this, and then I've got a can of grey primer, and I've also got, see if I can find it, I've got some cans of custom colour. Here we go, and this one is magnetic red, which was the code on the car, NAJ. The code is on a little sticker on the B pillar on the driver's side. If you're in the UK, driver's side. Obviously if you're in another country, it might be on the other side. NAJ, and from that they can make you a can all made up for about £15. So I'm going to give it a wipe with panel wipe, and you can join me after I've done the first coat of primer. Okay, welcome back. So the primer is on. I'll just give you a quick tour. So everything is now grey. I've not bothered with this bit. This is hidden behind the grille. I'm going to paint the red over everything anyway. So all the way around, and we've got a... You have to be careful with painting not to put too much on. When you first put the primer on, it'll look rubbish. There'll be hardly any coverage. It looks really patchy and spider webby. Just keep at it. Nice gentle strokes. Don't put too much on at once. Just build it up in successive coats. So have a quick go, stop, stand outside, go for a drink. 5 minutes later, come back, do it again, and keep going. I've used the whole can on this. Again, I've not bothered doing certain parts that are bad. This is covered up with a plastic spoiler. What's the point in wasting paint? So this is all primed. I'm going to go away now and leave it to dry for probably 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll go into the exciting world of colour. And right, we're on to the next stage. Now, while you were away, I used one of these. These are meant for polishing machines, but you can also use them like sandpaper. This is really fine. This is 3000 grit, and I always like, between coats, I've rubbed this down with this. You can't feel anything on here at all. It just feels like a piece of sponge, but as soon as you start to sand, you can feel it doing its work. And this just takes all the little bobbly bits. Obviously, as the paint hits the bumper, it tends to stand up in like individual droplets, and it feels almost like sandpaper when you rub your hand on it. And I want to get as best a finish I can, you know, granted that I'm doing it in the shed. So I like to just smooth each coat down with this. Just do it by hand, just go over it once, and then it feels a lot smoother. You know, when you first touch it, it's horrible. And I've also wiped the whole thing down again with the panel wipe. I shouldn't get greasy fingerprints, I'm wearing gloves, but you never know. Give yourself the best chance again. And I've had a quick trial with the red. This is the little doodah that fits where your tow hook goes in, so at least we're roughly in the same colourway. So we'll start painting the red. I'll do the same thing again, paint the whole thing, and then I'll come back and show you how good it looks, or how terrible it looks. Oh, it's hot today. Right, that's the red done. The can gave me just enough to do it a couple of times, and it's still drying off, and it's a fairly good match for the original colour. how good a match with the brand new Clearcoat on when I put it back on the car, which is 10 years old, so we might have some matching issues. But you know, this is a car that's only worth a couple of £1,000 that we used to get to the shops in, so I'm not getting too precious about it. There are still some little dings. To be honest, I've not really bothered to fill them in. There was lots of them, little stone chippy things. This car doesn't warrant all that attention and time and effort. It's just cosmetic. So I'm going to leave this now. I'm actually going to go off and have some lunch, let this dry off, and then we'll come back and we'll give it some clear coat. I might test doing the 3000 grit thing again, because there's, you know, bits like here where the spoiler will hide it, where I can test and see if I don't take the paint off. But we'll see. We'll come back and have a look what state it's in. Right, I think we're good to go. I'm just shaking up the lacquer, the top coat, the clear coat, whatever you want to call it, and then we'll give it a few coats of clear coat. What advice can I give you at this point? Every video I've ever watched about clear coating shows that you need to get much closer to the work than you might think. I'm obviously a bit wary of that, because obviously if you put too much on, you'll get runs, and guess what? You're then sanding everything back off and starting again. So, well, I'll do it and see how we go. I'll get as close as I dare, and I've got quite a few cans of clear coat. I'm going to get as much of it on as I can, so that I can give it a good polish at the end. Anyway, I'll clear coat it, and then I'll come back and show the results of that stage. Well, that's the clear coat done. I'll give it loads and loads of coats. Let's go around this side. Yeah, it's not perfect by any sense of the imagination. I can already see some imperfections in it, but a lot of that will polish out, I'm hoping. Generally it's way better than it used to be. I'm going to have to leave this now to go off, so I'm going to leave it for a day or so to make sure it's nice and hard. It's well in the 30 degrees here, so it should go off pretty quick. And then I'm going to come back and we'll start polishing and compounding it to get the final finish. So we'll come back and do that later. I hope by watching this you can see that these are the kind of jobs you can potentially do. You know, if you are aiming to get top body shop quality, and you just want to spruce your car up, you know, maybe you've had a scrape or an accident, and they want hundreds and hundreds of pounds to repair it, you can do it yourself with a bit of, you know, preparation and time. Right, so I'll come back and we'll do the polishing, and let's hope it looks great. Right, time now for polishing. Now, to be honest, I've already done a bit of this. I'm just going to go back through it to show you what I did. A lot of this will depend on what equipment you've already got. I'm lucky enough to have a DA machine, a DA polisher, so an orbital sander in effect. So instead of just going round and round, it's doing this. So what it means is you can use these for a lot longer on paint before they start to burn through the paint that you've just applied. What I started with, because this surface will be all bobbly from the paint spraying on it and then the clear coat, so you need to flat all this off. And what I use is a bucket, and then you work down. I started with 800 grit, and then 1000, then finished off with 1500, which is, again, you know, you feel it, it hardly feels abrasive at all. But what that will do, it will cover the surface with fine scratches, but it flattens the surface off. So it removes all the peaks in the paint and flats them off. And then what you do when you compound and polish is you remove the scratches. Effectively what you're doing is you're working with even finer sandpaper, if you see what I mean. The compound is like sandpaper in solution, but really fine sandpaper, and then you work up the compounds. And I've got two compounds. I use this stuff, Farah Clear. G3 is the rougher one, so I use that first, and then you use G10, which is the smoother one, and then in theory you can move to polish, just like the polish that you would use on your car to make it shiny. And you can see on here I am getting some shine. It's far from finished. I have just taken it out to the car, and incredibly, it's a fantastically good match to the existing paint, which is quite surprising because the existing paint is from 2010. So I'm either a genius or this paint's a good match no matter what year it is. So if you feel with your fingers now, you can feel this is very smooth. It's just the polish level, the gloss of the paint isn't where I really want it to be. The rest of the car's still quite glossy even after all that time. And I've got, through my own inexperience and ineptitude, I've got some kind of cloudy, and it's very difficult to see on the camera, but some of this isn't as nice as I'd like it to be. And I've got the odd scratch still in the finish. So I'm going to just keep compounding away at this until I can get it somewhere where I like it. I don't expect it to be perfect, as I've said before. This is a car from 2010 that we use just for like doing odd jobs and going shopping. So I don't want to spend too much time on it, but equally I want it to look presentable. So I'm going to give it another go with the DA polisher. Now, if you're lucky enough to have one of these, if you haven't, you can do all this by hand, but God, it'd be hard work. What you do is you put a couple of blobs of the liquid stuff on this pad. You put the pad, sort of spread it around on the panel that you're working on. Put the pad on the car. Don't turn it on and then put it on the car, because the polish will then be halfway up the walls and all over your legs, because this thing goes around quite quick. You put it on the surface and then move up and down in an area. They always say work in an area 6 times the size of your pad, and then you go backwards and forwards and you move. Because this DA polisher goes randomly, it takes time to work. So the recommendation is an inch a second. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. So don't be flapping it around all over the place like this. It won't do anything. So you have to give it time to work. Don't be afraid. It's not going to rip all the paint off. And just do a small area at a time, because you don't want the paint to get too hot, because then you might take it off. You know, keep feeling the panel, make sure you're not getting it too warm. And I'm talking on a day where it's still 30 odd degrees and ridiculously hot in here. So I'm going to continue doing this all over the car, and then I'll put a different pad on and I'll use that to put on the normal car polish, which is obviously going to make it a little bit easier for me. And then what we'll do is, once it's all shiny, I'll come back and we'll do the refitting of the bumper back onto the car again. Right, so the plan today is I'm going to refit this. I think it's going to be easier to do the final polishing. I mean, it moves about quite a bit. I mean, it's just rested on my table saw with a towel underneath it. I think if I can get this fastened onto the car, it will be easier to do. I can actually kind of press against it a bit easier without it moving all the time. Plus it's back on the car, so I'm going to do that first. We'll then look at doing some polishing, and then last of all we need to fit. I've ordered some new number plates, so I'm going to change the number plates back and front, because that'll already make the car look £10,000 more in value, just having a new number plate on. So it's been a bit of a mixed bag. I've got some issues with it here. Look, I've got a little mark in the paint there. In a way, I don't kind of really want it to look brand new, because the car's, you know, the 2010, so it'd look kind of strange. So I'm quite happy that I've kind of got rid of the bubbling of the Clearcoat, which was everywhere. It was just migrating across the whole bumper. And yes, I've got a few little stone chips that are still in the paint, but it looks a million times better than it did. So I'm going to take it outside and we'll put it back on the car and have a look. Right, so the first thing to do is put the fog lights back in. Now these are kind of a one-sided design, in that you've got this long piece that I'm hanging onto, which goes down that side. There's a little knurly wheel here, which is the adjuster. If you look in there there's like a Phillips head adjuster in there, and that wants to point down to the floor, so you can adjust the light from underneath. And then it's just a matter of fitting that in the slot there, and then lining up the holes the fog light actually goes inside the bits that are in the bumper, if you see what I mean. There we go. So like this one, so the bumper parts are on the outside, like this bit here, and the fog light goes on the inside. On the arms of the fog light, they've got like strengthening bars which wouldn't fit in front of here. So it's just a matter now of putting the clips, 3 clips in each of these holes, and then we can refit the bumper. Right, that's them both fitted. So this is the bottom, that's the top. Another way you know it's the right way up is the socket for the electrical connection is pointing downwards, so obviously any water doesn't kind of go into the socket. Right, so we offer this up and then we can plug these in and offer it up to the rest of the car, and then start putting the screws and all those clips back in. Right, putting one side on, the white plastic thing that's here goes over that, just like hit it with your hand and push it on, and then we've got the bolt to go in there, and then plastic clips and some Phillips heads around the bottom. Okay, so right on the right hand side and the left hand side, the first 3 holes are for the Phillips self tappers. Now you do have to get this black piece here, which will rotate around. You have to get that lined up because you have to go through the lip spoiler, through the front bumper and into the screw retainer that's in this plastic piece. So you might have to have a couple of goes at it, and you might have to move this about, but when you get it right, this will tighten up really well. Otherwise it just falls out. All the rest along the front here are all the pop-in clips. So once you've got that done, and I've done the other side, or the wing side obviously, it's time to put the grille back on. Right, first of all put these 2 outside ones, so the ones near the headlamps, the 2 of those, and then on the top you've got 4, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, which corresponds to the 4 holes in the grille. So again, 1 there, 1 there, and 2 in the middle here where the bonnet thingy is. Now on the bottom of the grille, don't forget there's these tabs, so like this and this, and they just push into this funny looking castellated bit. So there's a hole here, 1 here, it goes under this piece, and then 2 holes there. So now I'm going to leave this off because I'm going to have another go at polishing this, and then I'm going to refit the grille. Right, so further polishing is going to have to wait because my transformer for my polishing machine has exploded. So I've done a bit of hand polishing and put some final polish on. It's pretty good. I put the grille back in. When you do this, you have to make sure where these little holes are, you get those in the slot first. So kind of do the top first and then push it in at the bottom, and it clicks in on the tabs, and then you've got the 4 clips. If you push the bottom in first, you can never get these in, so you end up putting your hand down in here and getting the tabs open again. So top 2 in first, push the bottom in, and then these will be nice and flat. You'll know if you've got it wrong because you're having to push to get these into place. Well, this is it, the number plate's back on. I suppose the wrap up is that I like the colour match. I'm not so happy with the glossiness of the finish, so I don't know, because I'm just some random on the driveway, I don't know if I tried to polish it too early and it wasn't hard enough. So I'm going to give it a week and then I'm going to re-compound it, see if I can get any shinier. If that doesn't work, I think I'll mask off the front of the car and do another layer of clear coat and then see how that goes. I'll get some advice from the guys that I buy the paint from. But overall, it looks a million times better than it did. You know, casual observation, you're not going to even notice it's been painted. But it could be better. So I give it about a 7 out of 10, and I'm hoping in the future I can make it a 9 out of 10. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.